So, welcome into an emergency edition of the Football Reporters. We've got Beth Lindop live from Milan. I'm back in the northwest of England, having spent a lot of my day in Liverpool, which is what we do, as we know, Beth. But it's been quite a dramatic day on Merseyside, following a dramatic evening in Leeds on Saturday. The situation around Mo Salah, he's not travelled to Milan for the Champions League game. We all know why, because Beth was one of the reporters at Leeds at the weekend who reported on his bombshell interview, which said that his relationship with Arne Slot has broken down, accused Liverpool of throwing him under the bus, basically left his future at the club hanging by a thread. So, Beth, let's go back to the beginning. What happened at Leeds and why is Mo Salah so upset about his situation at Liverpool right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was pretty extraordinary that Liverpool twice surrendered an advantage, dropped more points, ended up in the midst of it, a 6-goal thriller, and yet the most interesting storyline came from a player who wasn't even involved. And yeah, Mohamed Salah after the match, as we know, he doesn't speak to the written media too often. He's a man of a few words, and quite often when he does speak to the media, it's because he has something that he wants to say. The last time that he spoke to the media was back in November 2024, when he was unhappy with his contract situation, and he came out and said infamously now that he was more out than in. And ultimately that served as a prelude to him getting the contract that he wanted at Liverpool, extended his stay by another 2 years. Now, what he said on Saturday night, you know, we don't know at this moment in time, but it could well have the opposite effect, because he came out and one of our colleagues was in the mix zone at the time, and Salah actually made a point of saying, I'm just going to go and get a shower and then I'll come back. So it wasn't just sort of a heat of the moment kind of thing. He sort of obviously decided that he was going to say something on Saturday night, and it was along the lines of he was very, very unhappy. He'd obviously been dropped for 3 games in a row, first time in his career that has happened to him, and he said as much. And yeah, I mean, there was so many things, so much to dissect. It's so rare that you hear a Premier League player, speak in the way that he did on Saturday night. He basically said his relationship with Arne Slot has broken down. He said promises have been broken by the club in terms of when he signed his contract to the role that he has now. He said that someone was throwing him under the bus, someone at the club wanted him out. I mean, it's just take your pick for the biggest lines to come out of that story. But yeah, I mean, the reaction in the media room on Saturday night was just one of pure disbelief. And you know, I know obviously you were flying back from the States at the time, and it reached you pretty quickly as well, and such was what a huge story it is.
Yeah, well, I was waiting to board at Dulles Airport in Washington, and Mo Salah was the talk of Washington Airport, shall we say. I just think it's worth explaining to people, to viewers and to fans who are watching, because what happens after a game is that, so it's called the mix zone. So basically, you don't just hang around dressing rooms like we used to do when I started out back in the day. It's now a case of where it's a more kind of sterilised environment where basically players are supposed to walk past you. When they leave the dressing room, supposed to walk past you on the way to the bus, but it doesn't really work like that. Nowadays, it's a case where teams will often select 1 or 2 players to speak to the media. So, I've been down at Liverpool this morning, and I spoke to somebody who said that Mo Salah wasn't the designated speaker on Saturday. As you can imagine, it's very rare for an unused sub to talk to the media, but there was a sense that the phrase I was told that they could smell something was up. And as you said, Beth, that, Mo Salah, when he speaks, it's often a kind of a strategic decision. It's something that he does for a reason. And I guess that when people were waiting in the mix zone, they're expecting, I don't know, to speak to Hugo Ekitike for his goals, or Virgil van Dijk, who's been speaking quite a lot this season. And then obviously you hit the jackpot when Mo Salah decides he wants to get something off his chest, and, get off his chest, he certainly did. Now, we know that he's been left out of Liverpool's travelling squad to Milan today. The statement of, it wasn't a statement, I guess, the position that Liverpool have got right now is that he will be out of the squad for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. Now, as you know, Mo Salah's due to go to the African nations next week, I think next Monday, to take part in Egypt's campaign, and he could be away for a month. So for me, it seems fairly obvious that he won't play against Inter, we know that, and I don't think he's going to play against Brighton Anfield on Saturday. That would seem unlikely in the sense that, 1, he hasn't been playing recently, and 2, you wouldn't just kind of give away a place in the team for players who've been playing. But also, you turn it into a massive circus. So this could be Mo Salah's last game for Liverpool. So does he deserve the right to have a farewell, having done what he did? Or should Liverpool just say, just go away for now, Mo, let's see how things stand when you get back, or is he not coming back? That's a big question to ask. I'm sorry, Beth, but that's where we're at, isn't it?
I mean, it's a really, really difficult question to answer. And I mean, even a few weeks ago, it would have been inconceivable that we would be at this point. And that is the sort of ludicrous thing about this is, yes, he's been dropped for 3 consecutive games, but prior to that, he'd started, I think it was 53 Premier League games in a row. He'd started all 12 previous games in the Premier League this season. So, it's not the likes of a Federico Chiesa who's barely been involved, or, a young player who's not getting the minutes he wants. He's still been, he's played a huge amount of minutes still this season. He's still been a huge part of this Liverpool team and this Liverpool squad. And I think the thing with Mo Salah is, we view him very much as being this superstar, and he's sort of superhuman. And because he doesn't talk to the media so often, he can be a little bit enigmatic sometimes. But I think he is actually quite an emotional guy. And I think, we've seen that at times this season on the pitch, particularly on that opening day. Obviously, we were both there when he broke down in tears in the midst of all of the stuff about Diogo Jota and the tributes to him. So I think he's an emotional kind of player and footballer. And I think there was a lot of noise, not from Liverpool, but externally, in the weeks leading up to him being dropped at West Ham, people saying, well, Mo Salah is the problem, and Mo Salah is this, and Mo Salah is that. And I think he has maybe listened to that. And as much as he's sort of lashed out at the club, I think the wider talk about him has really hurt his ego. And I think that is a big part of why he's reacted in the way that he has. Now, the question over whether he will leave in January, I think very much hinges on how much of that he said on Saturday was just pure frustration and emotion. And maybe when the dust settles, he thinks, probably the biggest option for him now outside of Liverpool is Saudi Arabia. We know that the reason he signed his contract extension at Liverpool was because he still believes he can perform at the top level. So he might well think, well, actually, if the option is Saudi or Liverpool, then I'm going to stay and fight at Liverpool. But obviously the sense on Saturday night was it was hard to see him working under Arne Slot again. Now, as long as Arne Slot continues to be the manager, which we anticipate will be, that he still has the club's full backing by all accounts. So that might be a factor. Maybe there's a question he goes to AFCON and he sees what Liverpool's form's like, what Arne Slot's future is like when he comes back in January. But you were obviously at the training ground this morning. What was the mood like in training? Because obviously I imagine it was a pretty full house to sort of see what was going to happen.
Yeah, so obviously we're told to get there for 11:45 for the start of training. It didn't actually come out until 12:01, so it was quite a bit of a wait, building up the anticipation, I guess. But when he did come out, it was all very normal. He came out with Hugo Ekitike. There was no sense of him, walking at the back of the pack. He didn't have a kind of dramatic entrance late, and he didn't, make a big scene. He walked out with Ekitike, joined in. Dominic Szoboszlai gave a bit of a playful hug, and they just got down to training, did a couple of drills with Szoboszlai, and then went into a more small-sided preparation game. It was interesting that Arne Slot and his coaches, that they were kind of quite detached from it all. There was no sense of them being in with the players. They were kind of quite a way away, but I guess that's what coaches do. They stand back and they observe, don't they? They don't actually get involved with the minutiae. So, if you didn't know what the situation was, that would have looked like a very normal training session today. But at the time, we didn't know whether Mo Salah was going to be on the plane to Milan or not, because the situation was very much in the balance. I was told that meetings had gone on this morning and we're going to go on after training to decide exactly what they would do. Because, on the one hand, does it make Arne Slot look weak by taking Mo Salah? Well, potentially, but then that could be a sense of why take the circus with you. But equally, if you're a strong manager who believes in your squad and believes in your ability to manage it, you would take Mo Salah and say, right, you said what you said, but I'm the boss, you're coming with us. If you don't like it, tough, but you are coming with us. Now, that hasn't happened. They decided to take him away and, tone down the focus. But, 2 hours' time, Beth, you're going to be in a press conference with Arne Slot, and this issue is not going away. It's not a case of, well, Mo Salah's not here, let's not ask about Mo Salah. I 100% guarantee that the first question will be Mo Salah. And that's fair enough, because you said before about, how somebody told me that the word they use at Liverpool about Mo Salah, he has a mystique, and he likes to cultivate that mystique. He likes to be a little bit mysterious, a little bit detached, a little bit only doing things that only Mo Salah would do. He's a special player, and I've seen it before in other players. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is the obvious one to me. The superstar players, they are treated differently because they deliver differently. Mo Salah has been Liverpool's talisman for 7-8 years. So he said at the weekend that he's earned the right to play. Well, he hasn't earned the right to play. Nobody ever earns the right to play. It's all based on what you do in your last game. But he certainly earned that kind of status as a huge player. But I think he kind of overplayed it. I think he overplayed his hand a little bit because he's not been playing fantastically well this season. I think, is it 9 goals in his last 33 games going back to February? His kind of form has dipped. And I think maybe that's why he's done what he's done there, because maybe he accepts that, do you know something? A move to Saudi Arabia might be quite an appealing move, because maybe he's not, well, he isn't the future at Liverpool, is it? They've signed Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike. That's the future at Liverpool. And it's not started particularly well, but, I always thought that when Salah vacates the stage, it will be when Florian Wirtz finally gets that kind of freedom he wants. And maybe that situation has come now. And Mo Salah's thinking, well, yes, he might be becoming yesterday's guy. He's not going to be playing all the time. He's not enjoying it as much as he was because, Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz aren't there to do his running. We know that, the tragedy around Jota has affected him as well. So 6 months ago when he signed the contract, it was a different scenario. But now, and also we can't forget that, sometimes when people say he's going to go to Saudi Arabia or any player, it's like, well, that's almost like the last stop in your career. But what you have to remember with Mo Salah is that he's a massive star in that part of the world. I went to Saudi Arabia during the World Cup in 2022 to do a piece, ironically, on Newcastle, who were playing there at the time. And the people I was speaking to in Saudi I was kind of surprised. I thought it was all about Ronaldo, and this is before Ronaldo actually went there. It's all about Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. But no, I was told the two biggest players in Saudi Arabia are Paul Pogba and Mo Salah. Now, obviously both, practicing Muslims, and obviously Mo Salah from that part of the world. He's a massive star. So moving to Saudi Arabia for Mo Salah may not be what people perceive it to be in the West in the sense of a downward curve. It could be, he's going back to a place where he feels comfortable. He feels, surrounded by people who absolutely love him. Just like Liverpool, he will be loved in Saudi Arabia as much as he's at Anfield. So it's not a downward step for Mo Salah, apart from the fact it may be in the sense of the quality. But moving to Saudi Arabia for Mo Salah will be a huge career move. So maybe he thinks it's the time. And I guess from Liverpool's perspective, if they get the chance to, offload Mo Salah for a fee in January, then, they'll be saving about £30 million in wages. If they get £30 million from him as well, that, for me, that they're just going to use that to sign Antoine Semenyo, and away you go.
Mark is absolutely right. I think the Saudi Arabia links, the way that he is perceived over there is very different to the culture that we have over here, the perception that we maybe have over here of the Saudi Pro League. I think if he were to go over there, it would be a very, very different experience than what we might anticipate at this moment in time. Now, as Mark said, I'm in Milan at the moment in my hotel, getting ready to go to the press conference this evening. And I think the difficulty for Liverpool is, the stance that they have at this moment in time is that they're taking Mohamed Salah out of the team temporarily. But the question is, when does that temporary period end? Which is the big question for Liverpool. We know that Mo Salah isn't going to be involved after next week anyway, because he's going away to AFCON. And then, beyond that, we don't know what comes next. Does he come back in January? Does he not? There's so many questions for Liverpool to answer, and they're sort of having to kick the can down the road a little bit at the moment because, they don't 100% know what the long-term future looks like for Salah and for Arne Slot as well. As much as they're backing him at the moment, results haven't been good enough. So there are so many questions for Liverpool to answer over the coming weeks and months.
I mean, obviously you mentioned off to see Arne Slot in a couple of hours, and I mean, a question he will be asked, it could be the first question, has Mo Salah played his last game for Liverpool? And you're right by what you're saying about the Brighton game. I think it's impossible for him to be involved in that game. So, Liverpool have, dealt with it in some ways by not taking him to Milan. But like I said, that Mo Salah's still going to be the topic of conversation. So I'm just before we wrap up, Beth, what do you expect the press conference to be like? You sit through a lot of Arne Slot press conferences. Is it going to be a case of, move on to the next thing? How is Curtis Jones going to fit into the team? Or is it all going to be Mo Salah?
So that's due to take place at 6:45 UK time. So I'll be heading over there very shortly to the San Siro, where I imagine there'll be plenty of press. Maybe some of them who hadn't even anticipated travelling have maybe made a few last minute arrangements to get out there for this evening's press conference. And yeah, as Mark said earlier on, the fact that Mo Salah isn't there does not mean that Mo Salah isn't going to be the main topic of conversation. Mark's asking me here, will Slot say that he's played his last game? I very much doubt it. I think Arne Slot is someone who likes to be quite laid back, quite genial. He's not someone who likes to get dragged into all of these big storylines. So I think Arne Slot will probably be quite keen to downplay this as much as possible, not least because this is actually a really big game for Liverpool. They lost 4-1 at home to PSV last time out. That was a game that they probably banked on winning pretty comfortably. So the fact that they didn't do that means that they now genuinely need points from these last 3 games, away to Inter Milan, away to Marseille in the new year, and then at home to Karabakh, to ensure that they get into the top 8. So it's going to be a crazy couple of days, I think, for Liverpool. There's going to be so much chatter about Mo Salah, but Liverpool still have a job to do at the end of the day.
Well, listen, I know that Milan can be quite tricky to get to the San Siro, certainly this time of night. So you've got 2 hours better to get from your hotel to the San Siro for a big press conference. So we're going to let you go. And you can keep up to date with all the Mo Salah machinations and everything at Liverpool from Beth over the next couple of days and on ESPN.com.